Welcome back to Supporting Physician Spouses. I'm Katie.
And I'm Kendra. You're listening to the final episode in the Predictability Problem Series, Reclaiming Rhythm When Medicine Runs the Clock.
So far, we've explored predictability through 3 layers. First, creating rhythms and routines. Second, anchoring yourself. Third, anchoring your connection. And today, we're talking about anchoring in your systems. Let's dive into today's topic.
Let's paint the picture today for our listeners. The call schedule explodes, someone gets sick, your backup plan fails. It's not just inconvenient, it can feel like the entire week just implodes on itself. So why don't we just embrace the chaos for this season? Well, the short answer is because it doesn't really serve anyone in our families in the short or the long term. And this isn't going to come as a surprise to anyone, but household inconsistency, disorganization, noise, unpredictability, these are all predictors of poor emotional and academic outcomes for children and higher parental stress. That's kind of a no-brainer. But research also shows that structured flexibility, those are routines with wiggle room, that protects against it. So remember, chaos happens, but consistent microstructures like set meal times or predictable transitions between activities act like shock absorbers.
Right, and we're kind of building this up, you guys. When one person in medicine experiences instability, everyone feels it. So we propose that creating systems is about rebalancing the family as a unit, not just fixing one part.
Yeah, when I was early in this life with my husband, I thought that predictability meant control. So I would really map down the entire week, meals, nap schedules, playtimes, childcare swaps. But when plans kept changing, I started to feel like I was the one who was failing at something. But really, what I was asking myself to do was stick to something that was actually impossible.
Right, and that is a common pattern. High uncertainty environments or rigid systems actually increases stress. So if we are trying to hold ourselves to a really high standard and we're not able to keep those, that is really stressful. I know I felt that in my life. So the key is flexible systems because they absorb that uncertainty. And I've definitely learned that the hard way, like you. I've come so far to almost hate planning. Actually, right before I started to have kids, I was a student. I was getting my master's in public health, and so it's so easy to schedule all my time. This is when I was going to be working. This is when I would be studying, and I could whip out my planner and really plan it out. But the second kids come in, my kids would hit a new milestone, and I would think, oh, now I can kind of plan around their nap schedules. And we all know it just doesn't happen. The second you plan on it, that's the day that they don't nap, and we're not able to show up to the thing. Someone has a blowout. Toddlers' moods have tanked, and we're not able to make it to the event.
Yeah, I think that's really relatable and where a lot of people can kind of get stuck into this all or nothing thinking. Like, if I plan and it never actually goes according to plan, then why bother planning at all? Or you might see people who are planning, but their planning looks like swinging from, okay, I'm just going to focus on the things that I need and I'm going to try to plan that. And that doesn't work. So then I'm going to go and I'm going to just pay attention to my kids and I'm going to try to plan that. And it's just really almost impossible to balance this, pendulum that swings back and forth if we never actually stop in the middle. And this is a concept that we've talked about before in a previous podcast, is the idea of a family-centered family. And the system should serve the whole, not just one person's needs. And so as kind of the default stay-at-home parent, when you're married to a physician and you've got little kids, how do we get that? How can you create a system that serves the whole unit and not just one person's needs? And so our answer to that is really having systems that hold the environment in a healthy way for everybody. So here's my little story, because I think everybody has one that is like yours. Kids, they don't run on schedule. But if you've been used to running on schedule, like you do when you're a student and you're having classes that are assigned at a specific time and you have somewhere to be at a specific time, or you have a job, it's really hard, I think, to transition into motherhood where everything feels a little bit more fluid. And so I ran up against that several times. My tendency is to plan and to overplan. The number of planners that I have is kind of ridiculous. But when my children were younger, we homeschooled. And it was the most frustrating thing in the whole world because I would map out the day, like this is when we're going to take lunch, and this is when we're going to do math, and this is when we're going to practice the piano, like all of these things scheduled throughout the day. And at the time I had a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And nothing, I can't think of a single day where anything ever happened at the time that I wanted it to happen or that I had previously prescribed it to happen. And my husband will attest that promptness is something that I value. And so basically what I signed up for when I decided to homeschool my kids was a recipe for disaster and endless amounts of frustration, because by midday I was angry and I was frustrated, and then my husband would come home and I would be angry and I'd be frustrated with him. That is until somebody helped me reframe what was actually going on. And I thought in order to do this well that I needed to have a very rigid schedule, almost like trying to duplicate, if they were in school, what the school would have, because they have a rigid schedule. They start at this time and they have lunch at this time and classes change and recesses at this time. And so I thought if I could just mirror that as closely as possible, then that's how I know I would be doing a good job. And so when I had those two things happen where I planned it, because that's how I'm going to measure if I've done a good job for my kids, but we could actually never follow the plan. It was just, I'm failing. This is awful. So someone really helped me to see that I didn't need a rigid plan, because what I was doing was not the same as what was happening in school. I was doing something that was different. And so what I needed was rhythms, and I needed routines that didn't depend on a clock, so that if somebody wasn't feeling well, we could adjust. Or if my 3-year-old was having a day, we could condense things. That instead of having, I should say, there is a time and a place for a schedule. And we see that, when you're at school, when you're at a career or a job, that makes sense. But rhythms and routines are what actually make sense for a family, especially if you're a stay-at-home parent. That flexibility gives you grace, and it's really just a lifesaver for your family. So this episode isn't about homeschooling. That we can talk about that another time. But we are talking about flexibility and a flexible family schedule that can adapt with you.
Yeah, I like, on the phone, how you can set reminders for a certain time, date, or when you arrive,
Yes.
I think I've started to learn that most of my systems occur just when dinner starts. It's not a time. It's just when it's, meal times, because those happen every day. It's usually around meal times that the rhythms happen. And so we do have a lot of messaging like, buy the planner, this is going to help you create a system for your family. But sometimes it can be overwhelming where there's too many 15-minute slots to fit in your routine, your schedule, your system. So figuring out a way to think about things differently that work for your family is really important.
I agree 100%. So let's give everybody a framework.
Yeah. So for today, the key isn't to build the perfect plan A, like I was just describing. It's not to fill in that planner perfectly, but it's to build a resilient plan B framework. How do we adjust for when things don't go as planned? Something that helps you recover faster when the inevitable happens.
Yes, and this plan B probably isn't the one that you're thinking of, but the plan B is an acronym. And so we're going to go through each of those now.
Okay. So again, let's go through PLANB. The first one is P, predict the pressure points. This is a good mind exercise that I've loved doing. So what tends to blow up first when things go sideways? Is it the meals? Is it childcare? Is it your emotional bandwidth? Even like, do your fun plans go by the wayside? Write these down, name them, because predictability starts with awareness.
Yeah, I'm thinking of several examples right now. And the one that I was thinking about sharing, I'll share later, but this first one is for our family, it was like fun. Like we would like save fun for last, and we would never get to the fun. And so if I could, again, go back and do things differently, I would make sure we were having more fun. Meal times and bedtimes, especially when my kids were younger, I would have gladly paid somebody to step in and take over from that time on, from like 5:30 until 7:30. Like those 2 hours, I think because I was so anxious about having some time for myself, and I knew that every minute that was delayed for dinner, every minute that was delayed with baths, every extra book I read was cutting into like this precious time that I had to like restore. And so I would be all anxious and worked up during that time because it was just hurry, 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 hurry. So anything that could have helped me kind of with those 2 hours would have been very appreciated.
Yeah, and just to look at it with curiosity and not with the emotion that we always
Yes.
feel with it.
Yeah, by 5 o'clock, there's a lot of emotions happening.
Amen. I mean, what's funny is I love bedtime, especially with my daughter.
Aw.
We have a routine where I know we do four things. And with my sons, they're kind of in the habit of like pushing the boundary,
Yeah.
and it feels like they're not honoring my own time. So I go into their room with a totally different energy because it's not set in stone. And I think they do too, because they're like, is mom more tired? Does she have something to do? Is she just more grumpy? Am I going to get my book or am I not? So I'm going to just
Yeah.
like press all her buttons anyways, you know. So we are still working on that.
Next is L. List your low effort backups. We want you to think of this in terms of if then statements. And we talked about this in episode 21, and it's included in our download with that episode, the Predictability Pocket Planner. So you can go and refer to that. But it really is a set of equations that says if blank, then blank. So here's some examples. If dinner plans fail, then we eat pasta and frozen vegetables. If bedtime soloing feels impossible, then it's smoothies and cereal picnic night. If I feel myself unraveling, then I text my friend. Just having those decisions made ahead of time really decreases the amount of mental load that all of us are carrying. I'll share those examples. And every time I think about deciding ahead of time, I'm always reminded of Steve Jobs, and he's notorious or
True.
famous, infamous for wearing the same uniform every day. And right now, if you imagine a picture of Steve Jobs, you know exactly what he's wearing. He's wearing a black turtleneck, he's wearing blue jeans, and he's wearing sneakers. And he says that he did that because he was using his brain power for other stuff. He didn't want to have to think about what to wear every day. I'm not quite to that point, but there are plenty of things that we can do to decide ahead that will help decrease the mental load in the same way.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, so this kind of takes us back to something that we've talked about as far as creating tiny habits, the idea of habit loop science. And this has been studied by many different researchers, but the core idea is that small, automatic habits create stability because they operate below the stress threshold. So you can go back and listen to episode 11, but basically the framework is what is your cue to action? And that's where you insert the routine. And then after the routine, you reward yourself. So something that I'm working on with my family is just the cue to continue to get ready for school. And so literally the cue for us right now is my first alarm on my phone. So that's the wrap it up. You need to go brush your teeth. We're going to get out of the house. And the routine is on our fridge. These are your 4 steps. And then the reward after is that on the way to school, we are listening to each child's favorite song. And so it ends up being a little bit of a celebration, but also a way to kind of get our, I don't know, nervous pre-jitters out before school and then head off to the day feeling connected and more unified.
Yeah, that's a great example. As you were sharing that one, I actually did think of one of mine. And sometimes these are hard to think about because they are habits, they happen automatically, and so you're not thinking about them. But I noticed I recently got some Invisalign trays. So I'm trying to straighten a couple of teeth that are making me a little unhappy. And my routine, so my cue used to be, it's time to go to bed. I would go in, brush my teeth, and then after I brushed my teeth, I would wash my face. And I was able to keep that, the cue and the routine But I noticed, because I had inserted the Invisalign tray, that I didn't take this chewy vitamin that I take right before bed. But I couldn't chew them when I had my Invisalign in, because you're not supposed to eat with them in. And so I didn't take them for about a week. And I've started noticing that I actually do need them. I thought maybe they were just a nice to have. But I'm like, oh, this isn't good. I am not sleeping as well. Things just feel off. And the only thing I can think of is that that part of my routine has been messed up. And so I said, okay, I got to move these because they were by my bed. And so I've had to relocate them to by my toothbrush so that I remember to take them before I brush my teeth when my trays are out. And then after my teeth are all brushed, I can put my trays back in. And I don't miss out on taking that vitamin. And so, again, sometimes when we're thinking about examples, it's really hard because you don't know exactly what you're doing that's following this kind of cue, routine, and reward. Mm-hmm. But it's magic. And I'm so much happier now that I've moved these chewy vitamins over to where my toothbrush is so I can actually take them.
Well, I like your example because that literally is the time of day where most of our willpower is so low.
Yes.
So you had to move the vitamins.
Quick pause. Hey, it's Kendra. We'll get right back to the episode, but a quick thank you to the partner that supports this show. It Gets Better Now, my one-on-one coaching practice for physician spouses. Maybe you're thinking, training is over. Why doesn't it feel better yet? That is my specialty, turning survival systems into sustainable ones. Time you can count on, calmer conflict, and a clearer sense of you outside of medicine. If you'd like support that understands this life, visit itgetsbetternow.com.
This also reminds me of, this is kind of constant, but a couple summers ago, we're in the thick of summer, and we all know how this goes. This is when, the children are all really craving alone time. Yeah. And it got to the point where I knew, and I actually kind of sad that I can't remember what it was, but I knew that there was one activity that no matter the moods, my boys always got along while they did it. And so sometimes we have to just think of those things in advance so that when I knew my kids still wanted engagement, they wanted to be with each other, but they were having a hard time like doing their imagination play. I said, you guys always have fun doing X thing. Like that can be your option. And that really helped the summer to continue going, and they continue to make memories with each other. But it was that predetermined idea that was the lifesaver.
That reminds me of one of our Instagram followers. We'll give a shout out to Mandy. She's at The Striving Mama. She does this every summer. Her family makes this big, like a summer bucket list of things that they're going to do. And then they don't have to answer the question, what are we going to do today?
Yeah.
Every day during the summer. So go follow Mandy. She's a fellow physician spouse and one of my favorite people in this world. But having that always works list, like you just described for your kids, that's priceless. Mm-hmm. And what a good way to teach your kids also that I can come up with my list for things when I need to maybe regulate myself or when I need to feel better, that I don't have to be thinking for the fast and easy fixes that sometimes we go to, like watching a movie or eating something perhaps we shouldn't.
Yeah. So you'll be surprised. You'll come up with this always works. But that and, me, listeners, 15 minutes outside. Sometimes there's resistance from some of the kids, but once we're outside for at least 15 minutes, we all come home feeling way better.
Vitamin D works miracles too.
Yeah, it does.
All right, we're going to move on to our third one. It's A, automate the recovery. So our working memory has limits. This is no surprise, is it? We do have limits. And systems help reduce the mental load by automating decisions. So when life is unpredictable, your cognitive load is going to spike, leading to decision fatigue and irritability. So you can use these automated recoveries to almost be like the signal that says, beep, 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 beep. It's time to reduce your brain's background noise. And the reason you want to do that is because it protects your energy for what actually matters. You want to spend more time in the connection phase and not as much in the constant triage phase.
Yeah, so this might be the week that you're doing Instacart grocery shopping, or you have a shared family note with your dinner defaults. Who can you call on when crap hits the fan and do you have that stand-in sitter or neighbor that you can call that you can kind of offload and receive some support from?
Yeah, I don't want to minimize any of those things, but having that list, especially of people that you know that you can call on, is huge. And to be able to decide ahead of time, because when you're stranded on the side of the road with something, or your kid needs to go to the emergency room real quick and you need somebody to watch your other kids, which has happened to us, um, having to stop and think about who you're going to call versus I know exactly who to call is, definitely saves time and the mental anguish that you have when you're already dealing with something that is stressful.
And I mean, you just described some emergencies. Maybe a lot of us know I have at least 5 people I can call if there was an emergency. We don't have to wait till things are emergent,
Yeah.
How many of us, me included, have told people that your previous week was really hard, and whoever you're talking to is like, why didn't you reach out? Like, I actually had bandwidth last week. I could have been there. So I think reaching out to people, even when it feels more like a convenient thing or a luxury, even to have some space by yourself, can be really connecting for you and that person, but also really beneficial for your overall health.
Yep. What are some of your other go-tos, Katie?
Out of the house resets for me. We go to the YMCA swimming, the skate park here. All of my kids are really enjoying that lately. Library pit stops, or even a quick drive with music on.
Yeah.
What about you, Kendra?
For me, it's probably taking a walk. Depending on what's going on in the house, I might go by myself. It
Yeah.
might be one of those kind of walks, or it might be a walk with the dog if I want to be able to, have my attention focused on something because, gotta pay attention to the dog in the streets.
Yeah.
Um, Baking is always something that always changes the mood in our house. It's like if I want everybody to kind of get together or be in the same room, if I start baking,
They
I
just
can
one by
get
one kind of
everybody.
come in.
Well, yeah, it starts to smell good, or they hear something and then they start associating it with something else, and they're just
Yeah.
curious about what's happening, and so they'll come in and hang out. Or this might not exactly fit into the same frame, but always having like a frozen pizza in the freezer. I always feel like I'm the hero when it's like, oh, well, there's a frozen pizza, you can make that. But kind of always just having something to go to. Like you said, getting outside is free and easy.
Yep. Okay, our next one. Number 4 is N. Name your non-negotiables. When everything falls apart, what stays? Maybe it's 5 minutes of quiet time before bed, lighting a candle at dinner time, a 2-minute breather outside. These small yet predictable routines signal to our nervous systems that we're safe, and our body recognizes we've been here before and we know what to do. How many times have I said, I'm so overwhelmed I don't even know what to do? But if we have these
Gosh.
in place, then your body knows what to do and it can kind of get out of that overwhelm. It can digest the stress and then we can continue on.
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about this a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about like chaos in an uncertain world, or, when things feel crazy in the world, like how to really ground and anchor yourself. And I think
Yeah.
this is, and we'll be talking about this more, or actually by the time this airs, we will have already talked about it, is creating those anchors that really ground you. It's like regulating your emotional system.
Well, I think also sometimes I sit in the hard because I want it to be hard. Like I
Yeah.
want it as evidence that my life's really hard.
Ooh,
Like maybe I'm trying to take a stance of martyrdom. But I think we
yeah.
all know things that are really nourishing. We talk about this candle being lit.
Yeah.
When someone lights a candle for me or for you, it's typically at like a nice restaurant or you're at like a day spa. We can treat ourselves with that kind of gentleness and lovingness with these little routines. We've also talked about sometimes life is hard and sometimes we make it
Yeah.
hard. So I'm trying to get out of my leanings to make it hard.
Yeah. I think we've all been there. It was my martyr era
Yeah.
decade.
We all have our eras. I love that.
Oh, yeah.
This also kind of reminds me of being a soccer player. Maybe any of you athletes out there, every team or teammate had a pre-game ritual. For me, it was connecting with teammates, but the second we landed in the locker room, my earbuds were in, and I was really internally focused, imagining the game and regulating my own nerves. But maybe some teammates would lead into superstition, like if I didn't wear this certain thing, not only are we going to lose, but we're going to get injured. So, what are your non-negotiables? There were some teammates who would never negotiate and were as flexible than others, but that was a time I got to see rituals left and right.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of your non-negotiables, Kendra?
I would say the non-negotiables, and this isn't like an everyday occurrence, but it seems to have been happening a lot more recently. Listening to calming music and then taking a long bath. Like just being able to treat myself well for a couple of minutes. And what is it about a candle? Lighting a candle also in the bathtub and oh,
Our next
yes.
episode, we will just talk about the science behind lighting candles.
No, there's probably some good research on that. But I'm not sure if that really fits the non-negotiables because it's not something that I do every night. But non-negotiables
Yeah.
is probably my routine, like brushing my teeth and washing my face. Like I'm at that age where taking care of my skin and body is really important because I want it to last a really long time. Um, those are non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Um, and now taking all those vitamins, non-negotiable.
I know. I wrote down deep thinking time. The nights that I do, whether it's deep thinking about my life, like being curious and problem solving in my own life, or coming up with a new scenario for the podcast and trying to figure that out, that's really nourishing for me, actually. And
Yeah.
so carving out that time for myself is super energizing. And I want to lean more into that being a non negotiable. Everyone in my family knows this is mom's deep thinking time, and we honor that.
Yeah, I love that because really that's an expression of creativity because problem
Yeah.
solving is creative. And so deep thinking and thinking about problems and how to solve them. Some people might create with their hands, other people create with their minds. But yeah, that's one of my favorite too.
Love that. Okay, number 5 is B, build feedback loops. After the disruption, pause and ask, okay, what worked? What made that really hard? And what can we tweak for next time?
Yeah, just a plug for our downloadable that we released a couple of episodes ago, the Predictability Pocket Planner. We actually have an exercise in there that allows you to take a look at what worked and what didn't and helps you. It's like the 7-day mood tracker. Like, what impact did this have on my week? So be sure to check that out.
Yeah. One problem spot it's coming really clear to me is when we arrive home after school, no matter what we've done, no matter if we went out to ice cream on our way home from school or played with friends or came straight home, everyone's a little bit dysregulated and everyone wants alone time and their own space. And so I'm still kind of in this tweak zone, but I'm now starting to look at it with curiosity and non-judgment. And I'll have to report back on what I end up deciding and if it's working. But that non-judgment is just allowing, again, me to come up with new ideas to better serve everyone in my family.
That awareness is part of the beauty of the Plan B, that it's not about doing more, but it's about less reactivity. So what you just
Yeah.
identified is that my entire family is really reactive after school.
Yes.
So you don't want to be scrambling for solutions in crisis mode. So you can use some of that deep thinking time to think about how you can pre-decide microsystems that will work. And then you just reevaluate. It's like, did it work? Did it not work? Does it work 90% of the time? Does it work 75% of the time? Is it 20% of the time? And what are you willing to accept?
Yes.
All right, so let's remind everybody what Plan B stands for. The P in plan is for predict the pressure points. L for list your low effort backups. A is automate the recoveries. N, name your non-negotiables. And B, build feedback loops. So Katie, you've done a lot of research on exactly why this works. I know that it works, but tell us a little what the research says about why this works.
Well, one, beyond just intuition, like you say, like I know it works, I have personal experience, but
Yeah.
there's also really something special about ordinary. And I love that researchers are out there and they're trying to study What is it about the ordinary? But psychologist Ann Maston, she says that routines provide that ordinary magic, the small, repeatable routines that restore order and identity after disruption. Routines build that sense of safety and identity, like we've talked about. It really helps regulate our nervous systems, and they're especially powerful after transition. And we have all been on a journey in medicine, from moving, rotations, schedule changes, you name it. So, we say that even a simple dinner candle or school drop-off song tells our nervous system that this is who we are safe, no matter what else is changing in the world around us.
This predictability isn't just an emotional side effect, it also is behavioral. So when your brain knows what to reach for, when it knows what to do, it interprets that as control. And so that idea of control and agency and autonomy is something that we've talked about over the last couple of weeks, and that perceived control is what actually lowers your cortisol, it improves your sleep, and increases your sense of competence. And again, you can go back to episode 21. It was the self-determination theory that says when those basic needs for autonomy and competence and relatedness are met, that your nervous system gets steadier. And that is, I think, something that all of us, especially in this medical life, can often feel like our nervous system is on its last limb, its last string, like it's getting ready to fall apart. So really, this is good for you. It's good for your family, just all the way around, being able to take those moments and control the things that you can control.
Yeah. So the takeaway, predictability isn't about perfection, none of that over here, but it's about pre-deciding the next right thing when there is uncertainty or shifts in your schedule that hit.
Excellent. So here's everybody's challenge for this week. Walk through the Plan B framework for one area of your life. Maybe it's mornings or meal times or evenings when you're solo parenting, and ask yourself, what usually derails me here? What is my low effort backup? What stays no matter what?
And if you need help mapping this out, we've created a worksheet to help you build your own flexible systems and to see everything written out and to see where your gaps might be without overhauling everything in your life. We're going to keep it simple. You can grab it by following the link that's in our show notes. And if you haven't signed up yet, this might be another good opportunity for you to join our office hours where we can explore some of the pain points in your life there. You can do so by going to supportingphysicianspouses.com.
That wraps up the Predictability Problem Series. Next week, we're shifting gears into gratitude right in time for Thanksgiving.
These are going to be fun. We will see you next time, friends.
Thanks for listening. If this episode was helpful, imagine what we can do with your specific situation. It Gets Better Now is my one-on-one coaching for physician spouses and supports this podcast. You can learn more at itgetsbetternow.com.